By the end of this video, you will have built your very own no-code AI agent in under an hour. AI agents are replacing jobs, and those who can build and manage them are the future of the workforce. It can help you save time, help you scale your business, and make you exponentially more productive. Let's start now. What is an AI agent? Basically, at a high level, it's a three-step process. You have an input. It'll go through our function machine where we have LLMs and different tools set up, and you'll get an output. So what is an input, for example? You can think of a lead that comes in, any type of business at all, service-based or different. It'll run through an LLM. We can do some research on it, qualify the lead, and we can automatically generate an output for it, which could be an email or a phone call. We can also think of maybe social media. What is an input there? What's trending? What are the people talking about? We can run it through an LLM or do some research on it and then generate an output. What could be an automatic post. It could be an automatic video generation. It could be an automatic video generation with edits. We can also think of financial information. Maybe a new order comes in or financial information changes or a company valuation changes. We can run it through our function machine and generate a new report or generate a new valuation for the company. And this is all running in the background. So pretty much once you set this up, this agent does all the work for you. You get an input and instantaneously you'll get an output. This is just such a force multiplier for you because once you set them up, again, you can go do higher level things. You can focus your time on doing maybe other tasks that you hadn't been able to get to. And you can also run these for businesses to really improve the efficiency of businesses. And a lot of people are right to call out that people who don't understand agents or learn these automations will get left behind in the workforce because a lot of businesses are starting to use them. And this is such a huge unlock for productivity. A lot of agents will be able to do people's jobs. The people who understand the agents, can manage the agents, will really be key value players for businesses. AI agents fall into two buckets, a predictable flow and an unpredictable flow. So right here we have the first one, which is a predictable flow. We can think of these as very sequential and very linear. So you'll have an input, a piece of information, where you'll run it through some tools, an LLM, and you'll get an output. But you want to repeat that process over and over and over again. Nothing changes. It's just running through the assembly line just to get you an output. So this is very good for setting up an AI automation. This can be done with no code, by the way. So we'll give an example. You get a new lead. You want to do research on the lead, for example. What zip code is it from? What type of service are they looking for? Are they qualified? You'll run it through an LLM as well, where you'll get an email generated for you, the text, the paragraphs, some of the contact information, and then that email gets sent for you. You can also set it up so that the agent actually calls your leads. And again, if you just think about this from a human perspective, if you're in sales or you're kind of managing clients, this is near instantaneous. So as leads come in, all this will be generated for you and an email will be sent out. So whereas the superpower is you'll basically manage the agent because then you can just maybe set a QC at what does the email look like? You read through the email, edit it a little bit, and then send it out. But again, imagine if you had to do this all yourself, from getting a new lead, doing all the research, and then sending the email, versus now you get a new lead and you're just kind of editing and looking over an email that was generated for you. It is such a force multiplier. We have our second type of agent here, which is working with unpredictable information. So you're really depending on the agent to make decisions for you and act autonomously to get you an output. So when we're looking at this, you'll have an input, it'll interact with an LLM, but then it'll go through some different tools and then give you an output. Say you want some research done. You'll set up the tools and the LLM, no code by the way, and you'll get a research report. Or if you're thinking of a business plan, you'll be able to run it through an agent and it'll generate a business plan for you, but it's acting autonomously. It's doing the research. It's looking, maybe, is this a good idea? What does the market say? You can also think of maybe a script where you're creating a script based on the trending topics on social media and it'll generate a script for you. These are a little bit more wonky right now just because you're really depending on the LLMs to do a lot of the heavy lift and sometimes they'll hallucinate. but you can kind of see where the direction of the industry is going, where you're actually able to get an output that is very useful today, let alone a year from now or 2 years from now. And you have to be very careful here, because you don't want to use this type of setup for linear and sequential information. So when we're thinking again about the leads and the automating correspondence with them, we could set it up in this fashion, but it would take way more time. You'd have way more hallucinations and a higher error rate, because again, you're really depending on the LLM. To summarize the two buckets, we have sequential and unpredictable. People are using them interchangeably right now for agents, but when you have a sequential situation, people will use the terms automations or workflows because there's something that isn't necessarily depending on autonomous agents to think by themselves. When you're thinking about LLMs or agents actually going out there and doing the research and communicating and actually generating their own results, the linear flows aren't necessarily as autonomous because it's a setup automation. Some of the differences between the sequential setup we looked at and the unpredictable setup we looked at are the cost efficiency, right? We have a situation where in the lead example, we have a very predictable and consistent path. We're going to get an email, we're going to get a phone call from the lead, we're going to qualify it, and we're going to send an output in terms of an email or a phone call to them. It's very predictable and consistent. It's also very easy to build and maintain, as we'll see with no-code examples. There are low failure risks. Why? We have first event A happens, then B, then C, then D. There isn't an overlap where we have different dependencies, or we're dependent on an LLM or a different type of research that can cause something to break. We're just sending an email or a phone call. These are things that we can scale very easily. It's literally just something happened, then we trigger the next event and the next event, ultimately to get to our desired output, which in the case of following up with leads was maybe an email or a phone call. When you look at the current landscape, less than 40% of small businesses have adopted AI tools, and most of these companies are stuck using a ChatGPT or a basic form of an LLM. There is just huge demand for automated workflows, and it's just absolutely exploding for AI agents. If you think of AI agents and workflows, they can work 24/7. Freelancers are out there charging hundreds of dollars to build custom agents for businesses. A lot of people are consulting businesses to make them exponentially more efficient by implementing some of these agents and automations as well. You are very early, but the important thing to know, AI agents and automations are coming to every vertical of the workforce. Every industry will be touched by this. And again, the people who do not understand these tools will get left behind. Given that AI agents are going to touch every single industry, we started a community in which we release new automations and new agents every single day. So regardless of what vertical you're in, what industry you're in, AI agents are going to impact every single one. Every one will be touched by these agents. And again, if you don't have the skills to manage the agents or build the agents, you will be left behind. The people in the workforce of the future will be able to manage these. Again, going back to the example of client outreach, you're just managing a bunch of agents who are taking an input, which is a lead, and sending an email, which is the output. That person is exponentially more productive than someone who's actually doing that all themselves. Given that this is going to go into every industry, think about joining our community and learning agents that can be impactful to you, regardless of what industry you're in. We will take you from a beginner who knows nothing about agents to developing and building agents that you can actually send out in the real world for your specific vertical, regardless of what industry you're in. So you'll go from 0 to 1 and actually be able to use these tools to make yourself more productive. So to get started, the first thing we want to do is go to n8n.io. As you can see from the landing page, they do a great job of showing the user interface here. It's very similar to the lectures we just had previously, where you see an input, you see an AI agent using some tools and then creating an output for you. You can see how many different apps it integrates with. I mean, really, and the list just keeps getting bigger and bigger. So regardless of what you're using or the task that you're doing, you can really incorporate it into so many different lines of work. They also have some case studies here that you can look at. They make an emphasis on not needing code, but also they have an opportunity to use code to get a little more technical and more detailed for very particular things that you want to complete. They really push the scale that they can automate things at, and it's really true. There are so many different things that you can do based on just all the plugins you just saw. There really is no limit to what you can automate, and it's great again for businesses or consulting businesses because you'll be able to just increase the productivity so much by incorporating some of these automations and agents. Here is the pricing page. As you can see, you have different tiers. It's really dependent on how many users you need, how many different executions you're going to run, and the complexity of agents and automations that you're going to build out. So you can look through this on your own time, but they do offer free trials on all the packages here. We'll just click Get Started up here. And now we can set up our 14-day free trial from this screen. So you just fill in the information. And then we'll just click start the 14-day free trial, and that'll get us going. This is the overview page. You have a dashboard with very useful metrics here that can help you track how you're doing. You can also start from scratch or use simple AI agents to kind of test out examples to see how they work. The first thing that we can see are the executions. This basically shows you how many production executions have been completed in the past 7 days. Again, this doesn't include any test runs. It's only things that are live. We also have failure executions here. So you can see in the past 7 days how many failures have happened. So as you keep track of that number, if something spikes, you know maybe something broke or there's an issue with an agent or automation, so you can go in and correct it. We also have the failure rate, which is a great metric to keep track of, because as we get better at creating agents and automations, we'd ideally like to see that percentage go down. It's something to monitor, so if it spikes, you know something broke, you might have to go back and debug some automations. Time saved shows you your ROI on how many hours you've saved over the past 7 days by running these agents. So if we think back to our simple example of getting a lead, following up with that lead, how much time does that take for a person to do? Researching the lead, the zip code, etc. The agent in automation would do it, and that will give you so many hours back. This is a great way to see all the productivity you're getting back in your life or contributing to your business by setting up these agents and automations. Runtime shows how many seconds it takes your agent or automation to run. It's an important metric because as you start thinking about bringing in LLMs or different tools that may cost per usage or have a token fee, you really want to think about the most optimal way from going from input to output. And this is where communities come in handy, because we have a bunch of templates in our community. We have a lot of optimizations already built in, and we also have a bunch of people in different verticals. So whatever you're working on, you can get help. We help you. And also people may have built it out before. So it's a great way to build something very specific to your use case, and it'll save you a bunch of time. On the left, we have a personal tab. This is a place where you can create your own workflows. You can also test out a simple AI agent here. But for example, if we click one from scratch, you can go ahead and name it. This is a place where you'll build out a workflow, an agent. And then if we go back and click on personal, we can see it's in here. So all the workflows that you create will come in here. Again, back to the organizational structure, you kind of want to really think about how you're organizing these, because as you build a bunch of workflows in different projects, you want to have a good system to easily get to them and recall them. Now to the left, the Shared With You tab. This is a place where you'll see different agents and automations that people have shared with you. So if you're working with a group or a team, the workflows will show up here. So to the left, we have the Projects tab. We'll go ahead and click Add Project. We can name this My Test, and we'll go ahead and save this project. You really want to think about how you're naming projects, because as you work with maybe different clients, or you're working with different verticals, or you're finding a way to store these agents and templates, you want to be able to recall them relatively quickly. So In these, we can also add workflows. So if we go to workflow here, we can create a workflow. We'll call it, and we'll save it. So now when we click on our projects, we see the workflow that we created inside of it. We can also create another workflow. And if we save this one, when we look at our projects, we have two workflows. We can also create a folder. From here, we can drag and drop some of the workflows we created into the folder. So there we are. And then we come in, we open up our folder, we see the two workflows that we created. This is why it's so important to think about how you want to structure your file system, because it can get tricky really fast and you don't want to be stuck around clicking to find a certain automation you want. So really think about it and make something that's optimal for you. On the left, you have the admin panel, place where you can upgrade the plan and also adjust some billing information that you have. From here, we can also click on templates. These are a bunch of templates that are already made. So if you're in sales or marketing, there are some ready-made templates here. These are a good way to get started. And this is why it's so important to be a part of a community, because as you go through and build these AI agents and automations, there are some optimization techniques and different things that you can do that are very particular to your use case. So a lot of things in our community have already been built out. And if you have questions, we can support you and help you build out different automations. So it can get really hyper-focused on the particular outcome that you need. So what output are you looking for? How can we help you be more productive? You can find the link in the description and you can join our community from there. If we go back to the overview page, we can click on variables. This is a place where we'll store API keys and also webhook URLs. We can also click on the Insights tab. The Insights tab shows you a bunch of different metrics. So again, this is really important to refer back to, because if you run into maybe a bottleneck or you need to do some debugging or things change and a production breaks, this is a place where you can kind of visualize how it's all performing. All right, so we can go to create a new project here. So we'll create the project. Now I can also create a folder here. Just call it section 1. So now we have a folder in our project. And as we create workflows, right, we can save it. Now when we go back, we can add this workflow into this folder. As we create another workflow, save it, we can add this into section 1. We can also add another folder. Again, as you build these out, you can see how it can get really complicated really fast. In particular, if something breaks or you're trying to optimize a specific part of an agent or automation, it's really helpful to have good naming so you can find it pretty quick. So for example, we come in, there's nothing in this one. We go in here. All right, we know we need to change the agent in section B. So in the workflow here, we basically have a blank canvas. In this, we can add many different kinds of nodes. So what are nodes? Nodes are the rectangles that you'll see on the canvas. So if we click Add First Step, we have a bunch of different options here. We can have something that triggers the automation or agent manually. We can have something when a chat is received to trigger it. We can have a node that we set up where if we get a submission from a form or a change from a form, it will automatically run the automation and agent. So we have many different options, but with you, I want to go over the 5 and 6 types of node types that are important to keep in mind. So as you start thinking about building out automations and agents, it gets really tricky in terms of how to think about structuring them, and having the knowledge of what type of nodes there are will really help you think through what's needed to actually get set up. So here are the 6 types of nodes. Starting with number 1, we have trigger nodes. So when you're thinking about creating an agent or an automation, there is the first event, and these could be webhooks. A very common one to kind of wrap your head around is an email trigger. So you receive some type of email, and that triggers the automation that will trigger the agent into action. So it's just basically what is actually starting the whole process. Number 2, we have action nodes, exactly what it says. The node is taking an action. So for example, we can have Slack sending a message, we can have Gmail sending someone an email. So we're really thinking about doing something. The third type of node we have are logic nodes. So these are if-then statements. So for example, you can think of if you received maybe an order, you would want the order to be over $100. If it's over $100, then something else happens. So it provides some logic to the setup. Number 4, function and data transformation. This allows you to manipulate and generate data. So if you think of split in batches, say you want to send user emails and you want to send 500 of them out, you wouldn't send them all out at once. It would allow you to split sending these emails out in batches of say 50 so you don't hit API rate limits. Number 5, we have AI and machine learning nodes. This is a node that is basically ChatGPT. So when we were thinking about the earlier example of, for example, writing a script of trending topics on social media, the LLM would do the heavy lift here. So this just basically allows you to connect different types of LLMs into your nodes. Number 6, third-party integrations. There are hundreds, if not thousands of now pre-built tools by certain third-party apps. You have all the big players, Google, Notion, Stripe, Twilio, and it really helps you kind of build out your automations and agents a whole lot smoother because they're already ready to plug and play. Okay, back to the overview page here. As you can see at the overview at a high level, you can see some of the workflows that we've created. They show up in this place as well. You can also check them in the projects. So for example, we'll go in and we'll create a lead workflow together. So for example, leads are coming in, I want to get an email and I want it to tell me what the budget of that lead is. So we'll generate that in section B here. All right, so now we're in the workflow for section B. We'll retitle this to our new lead form. Okay, so now when we want to add our first node, this is something that will trigger the whole entire automation. So we want to do a form submission. When a new lead comes in, we'll be able to track its information here. So we'll walk through this. The form URL is not important right now. We can call this new leads. The description, we can say new leads for a marketing firm. Say I have a marketing firm. These are the new leads for them. Form elements are different things that we can capture in the form from people. So for example, we do, what is your name? And it will be a text form. It'll be a text element, sorry, and you'll just be able to fill in a name. So we can just have a placeholder. This will show the person on the other side an example. So I can just put in my name. We can make this a required field. We'll add another form element where we will do, what is your budget? And again, here we have different options. We can give people basically a multiple choice list. So we can do under 1,000, 1,000 to 5,000, and maybe finally 5,000 plus. We'll make this a required field, and we can add maybe a final form element to describe the project, for example. Describe or project type. And it can be a text area. So we'll say describe the project. So we can require this. We'll also require their name. And now that we have set this up, we can go to click execute step. This will show you what it looks like when people are on the other side. So we can go ahead and fill this information. Okay, I see this, and now I'm putting in my budget. I'm going to spend 5,000 plus. What is the project? I sell dog sweaters and want to run a holiday sale for them. Okay. Now we submitted the form. That's what it looks like from the other side. So when we come into our workflow, this is what it will look like. If you look here to the right-hand side, we have the output. It captured my name, it captured my budget, it captured the text area of me describing the project type, and it gives you the exact date of when it was submitted. Another thing we can see is, in addition to the table format, we can see the schema. So you can see the name, you can see the budget, you can see the project type. Where this is super powerful is, say we had more variables, say we had a zip code variable. We can reroute these requests by basically their geography. So if they are in a certain zip code, they would go in a different direction and interact with different nodes. Or we can have a drop-down list where people will say maybe what type of industry they're in. And based on what type of industry they're in, we can reroute that request to another node. For example, say we're selling something, we can send the industry-specific request to different salespeople, for example. So we want to get out of this really quick, and we can actually rename this node if we just click on it and click spacebar. We do new leads. And you can move this around. You can zoom in, zoom out. It's pretty great here. And one of the things, and also again, you can see one new item here because we did get one form submission. So looking at the canvas here, we can add a new node to our lead form. So we can just click the plus sign here, and we want to qualify these leads based on their budget. So we can add a switch node. So here we are. And again, if you just look at this from the high level, you have an input, you have our current node, and you'll have an output. So if we go back to the form, we do not have an input, right? Because this is the trigger of the whole automation. So we just have our node and we have an output. So now when you come to the switch, you have the input, which is coming from the forms. You'll have the switch node and you'll have an output. So we want to qualify these folks by the budget that they have. So we'll come in here and we'll rename this and we'll call it, what do we have? We had 3 options for budgets. So, oh man. All right. And then we'll add low, medium, and high budget. So if we click out of here, we can see now we have 3 options, low, medium, and high. So now we can reroute these to separate nodes we set up. So if we come back into the switch, we can actually drag some of the schema into our rules here. So for example, in here, we can do what is our budget. So for the value, we either have fixed or expression. So fixed is a very consistent number that we will send every time. Expression is more dynamic, where we're actually taking information from the previous input. So we want to take the information and the value from the inputs that we're getting. So we want to keep this as an expression because we want to know if it's the low, medium, or high budget. So we can drag the budget into here as well, and we can drag the budget into here for the third option. And now we just want to put in the values. So we'll go back. We will take the first value, drop it into the low budget. We will take the second value. Where are we? We will drop it in to the medium budget. And we will take the final option, which is the high budget, and drop this in as well. So we've completed this, and now we can move on. So back on the canvas here, we can execute our workflow to test it out. So here we are. We'll get a submission going. What is my budget? We'll say medium. I make cat loafers and submit. Now, if we go back to our Canva, we can see that it was successful. We see a medium budget, there is one item. So if we come in here and click, we can see the input again, input, function, output. Remember from the lectures? So we click on the switch node, we have the input, you can see it here. You can see it in a table format, laid out like this, or you can see it in the schema format. Now, it already generated an output for us, so now we can see it already got bucketed into the medium budget option. There's nothing in low budget, nothing in high budget. We have something in the medium budget. So when we come back out to the canvas, this is powerful because we can connect these nodes to different items. So now, say something came in that was low budget, maybe we'd want to send an email follow-up, or if something's a medium budget, we'd have a different type of follow-up. If something's a high budget, maybe we want to set up a call. So we can go through this right now and we'll set something up for the medium budget. So for medium budget, we can add, say, an email. So every time I get a medium budget request, I can send an email to my Gmail. So we'll click plus to add a node. We'll go to Gmail, click Gmail, click send a message, and we have to get credentialed. So this is just basically connecting N8N to the app. So we haven't set up Gmail yet. We can go ahead and do that. Create a new credential. We want to sign in with Google. Click that. And now at this page, you can just fill in your Gmail and sign in. So we set up our Gmail account. We can change the name here to Hello Test, and we can go ahead and save that. Now, what do we want to do? We want to send ourselves a message when we get a medium budget lead that comes in. So we're going to we'll send it to ourselves here at my email. And for the subject, we can put new lead, and we can add a emoji here. And you can also add, you can keep this fixed or you can add some details here. So for example, if we click on the schema here, we can add the name of the person who's coming in. So we can just drop this in, and now every time we get a email, the subject will be new lead, and then it'll be the name that someone filled into the form. So we can do HTML or text, we'll do text, and we can open this up to see the message that we're sending ourselves. And we can sit here and say, hello Fit, you have a new lead, right? And some of the things that we can add here, if we move it to, that would be fixed. If we move it to expression, we can really customize this. So we just want to click this little anchor here, open this up, and now we can get really detailed with it. We can say, this is the person's name who came in as the lead. And then we can also add their budget. We can add the project type. So every time I get these emails, I'll be able to immediately look into the email and it'll have all of this custom information for me. Another thing I may be interested in is the time. So I don't want to let these leads go cold, so I can say when it was submitted and get a timestamp for it. So now if we get out, we have really set this up using expression, and it gives you way more customization. So when you get these emails, you can really add a level of detail that allows you to take the inputs that you're receiving and really get a good output. One of the things we want to adjust here, if we go to add option, we want to append N8N attribution. This just removes some of their watermarks. And now if we click out, we have this set up. So we can execute the workflow. Say, here we are. what is our budget? Here, I make turtle necklaces. Whoops. 4 turtles, not out of turtles. All right, so I make turtle necklaces, 4 turtles. My budget is the medium range, and there's my name. So this should trigger the automation to send an email to myself. So if we go, we can see submission, it went, there's 1 item, and now there's 1 item. Now the interesting part, let's go ahead and check the email. So we'll go to the email from here, and here is the email. So as you can see, we have the subject there, the new lead, and it was an expression. So we dynamically took what was in the form to add the first name to the subject of the email, as you can see here. And in the body of the email, we were able to add data specifically from the inputs of the form. So I have the name, I have the budget, I have the project type, and I also have the timestamp of the form submission. So we literally took a form that we captured leads on. We were able to create a routing mechanism to send them in different directions, whether they were low, medium, or high. And we were able to find an end destination to send ourselves an email when they're medium budget. Congratulations, that's your first automation. Now we'll create a setup using OpenAI. So we'll walk through a simple setup here. We are on the Canva and we'll add a manual trigger. Again, this is our node. We'll add another node to it. Here are the node categories. We'll click AI, we'll click OpenAI, and the option we have here, we want to message the model. So again, to set up credentialing, you'll get some OpenAI credits for free in this, but if we want to set up a new credential here, we'll have to go to the OpenAI website, and this is different than your ChatGPT subscription that you have. So you'd want to come to the OpenAI website, you go in the top corner, you hit API platform. This is where you want to sign up to the API platform. So we're back on the node page here. After you set up your OpenAI API, again, that's different than your ChatGPT. You can purchase some credits there. You'll get an API key that you'll copy and paste up here. And now we can go through with the rest of the node. You have the option here to send it a text, image, audio, any kind of file here to really customize what you're looking to do. So for us, we want to pick the model here. We can go with maybe the mini model. And the prompt, so we're sending OpenAI a prompt, a message, and OpenAI will send us one back. So we can ask it, I am hosting a movie trivia night. Give me popular movie trivia questions. And we want to say maybe not to use credits here. We want to be clean on these prompts. A popular movie trivia question and answer. So now we can execute this step. And here we are. So again, the input, the node, the output, and we got the information over here. If you remember from the previous example with leads, schema is great because you can drag and drop schema. The table format is just another way of viewing the output. And then you also have JSON, which is a little bit more technical. I personally like the schema option here so we can see the content, and it gave us a response. In the movie The Matrix, does Neo take the red pill or the blue pill? Interesting. And it gives you an answer. So we can go back out to the nodes and we can add we'll do an edit field. And we really like schema, right? So we have the table, the JSON, and we can just drag and drop the schema. So we just really want the content. What is the output from OpenAI? So we drop this in and we see that we have the JSON here, what does this mean? So if we look at it, it's json.message.content. All that means is it's going to the message, and then it's also pulling the content. So this is what it looks like in a little bit more technical term, and then here is your end result. So you'll actually get basically the content that is coming out of ChatGPT for this instance. So if we go back, we can get out. We have this set up. So let's execute the workflow. So if we open this up, we can see ChatGPT came back with another movie question. And this, it says, in the movie The Wizard of Oz, what song does Dorothy click her heels to repeat in order to return home? And the answer is Over the Rainbow. Again, just a reminder, you have three forms of showing this input, right? Schema, table, JSON. We dragged and dropped the schema, the content, manually into the OpenAI model. We can see here, again, what JSON means. It's just dot message and then pulling the content. And then this is how the result looks kind of in the user interface. So we can come back out to view all of the nodes here. So say we want to do something other than having to manually trigger talking to ChatGPT. We can really just show an example of the power of setting up these kind of automations. And we'll say maybe if we get a chat, then it'll automatically talk to ChatGPT. So here what we can do is we can delete the execute workflow when it's triggered. We can add a new node and say when we receive a message. And we can test the chat. We'll bring it up here and we'll just add the plus to our OpenAI model. And now we can just say, hi. There we go. So now we have the response is, because we didn't change anything with our OpenAI model, we get another movie trivia question and answer. Obviously it doesn't make sense. So we can go into here and we can say, let's change the prompt. We can have the model behave more like it does when you message ChatGPT than just spitting out movie trivia questions. So again, we really like schema. We can just do chat input. We can drag it and drop it into the prompt. And again, if we open this up, what does this mean, right? It's just basically taking JSON, chat input, and here's the result. I message hi, you're getting the result of hi. So now if we get back out and we save the model, we can come in here. Hello, my name is Fit. I am going to visit Sao Paulo. Please give me 2 landmarks to visit. And here we go. So now the model is just talking to me as if you'd use ChatGPT. So you can begin to think of chat requests coming in. I hope if you're thinking about businesses or consulting or your own job, you can really set these up so that you really are automating a lot of chats, regardless if you have maybe service requests or questions on websites, etc. You can set these up pretty easily and it really saves you a bunch of time. And you can get a little more complicated in terms of setups because now we can actually route these based on what the people are talking about in the chats. Does it have to be directed to a different salesperson? Does it have to be directed to a different service provider? Is it an emergency that, maybe someone's electricity went out and we need to send someone there? So you really have so many different options, but I hope this just gives you a feel for the power at your fingertips. And we set it up in, a few minutes here. So we'll move on and we'll try some more of them. Now we'll do a quick overview on JSON. It's very important just to have a baseline understanding as we move forward with some of these templates and layouts. So when we get data in n8n, we have it in 3 forms. So you have the schema here, the table, and JSON. Schema, very easy to see visually. You can drag and drop these. Table, if you're used to Excel or Google Sheets, this looks familiar, but you can also drag and drop items from these as well. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It's basically key value pairs. What does that mean? You have a key, you have a value, and they are in pairs. So you have role, for example, is the key, surrounded by quotations, and then you have a colon and assistant, surrounded by quotations. That is the key, role. The assistant is the value, and together they're a key value pair. So that's all JSON is. JavaScript Object Notation, and it's driven by key value pairs. Now we want to look at the 5 main data types in N8N. So if we come here, we have the 5 types. A string, which is just basically words surrounded by quotations. We have numbers, just that, numbers, but they are not surrounded by quotations, as we'll see. We have a Boolean. It's basically true or false. An array is just, you can think of it as just a list. And then we have an object. In an object, you can have strings, numbers, booleans, arrays, and other objects. You can think of an object as a block that has other items inside of it. So we can go to string first, and we'll see how this is represented. So we can say food, and then for the value, we want pizza. We execute this. Again, we have our 3 forms. You see it in schema, you see it in table format. And now for JSON, you have key value pairs. The key, colon, the value, key value pair together. So we have food and then pizza surrounded by quotes. So now if we come here, we can see what a number looks like. So we can say age, and we can say 100. We can execute this step, and now we have, again, the 3 forms in JSON, key value pair, age, and 100. It's important to note that numbers do not have quotations around them, and it's just mindful when you're working through templates moving forward. If you want to end up filtering numbers, you want to make sure that you're putting them in the correct format, because we wouldn't be able to filter, say, by age or product size or order value unless we make sure that it is formatted correctly. And now if we move on, we can do a Boolean, basically true or false. Rain, false. Key object, or sorry, key value pairs, key, colon, and then we move on and we have an array. We can do array again as a list. So we can do colors, and this is where you want to put a list together in JSON. It's very simple. You do the bracket, and now we just do the color. It's a string. Then we do another color, quotations, and then we do another color, and then we do a bracket. So we'll execute the step, and there we go. This is how it shows up in the schema form. We have colors, we have blue, green, and purple, table form, and then in JSON, it just shows you how it's represented. For the final data type, we have object. And for object, this is just basically, again, you can have an object and you can have all the different types of information there. You can have strings, numbers, booleans, and arrays, and other objects in the object. So one thing you can actually do is you can use ChatGPT to create the object for you. So JSON is just a different way of formatting data. If I speak a sentence, write a sentence, I can ask ChatGPT to put that sentence in JSON format, and then we can put that into N8N. So we'll go through an example here right now. So we're on ChatGPT, and we can put a sentence in JSON object format. So put this into JSON for me. And we can say, my name is Fit. I like pizza, peanut M&Ms, and tea. My favorite color is blue, and I am working on my golf game. So here we are. It converted this into JSON format for us. And now we can take this object and put it into N8N, which I'll show you right now. We just click copy here. And now if we go back to N8N, we can paste it in. And now we can go to, again, out of all the data types, we click object. We switch it to JSON. We delete this. I literally just copied the JSON that ChatGPT gave me. And now I paste it in. So it's translating a sentence into a JSON file format. So we run this, and here we are. So we have the JSON output. We also have it in table format, and we also have it in schema format. Why is this important? It's because the templates in N8N are built with JSON. Having a basic understanding will help you as you build templates out. So as you're building things out, you may get some errors when, for example, it'll say XYZ expected an array, but received this, or XYZ expected an object, and that wasn't received. So it'll help you go through the JSON and really be able to pinpoint if there's a particular error or simple things you can fix. We'll cover the two fundamental ways that AI interacts with the real world. So we have RAG versus AP calls. RAG lets your AI answer questions using your own documents. So it will give the relevant information to the LLM based on documents you already have. You can think of maybe specific policy documents in your business, or FAQs, or terms and conditions, things of that nature. They're internal, we store them, and we can have relevant information be accessed by the LLM. So just think it's internal. API call is where you're fetching live data, and is triggered by an action by connecting to an external service. So if you think of pulling in the weather information or live stock prices or connecting to calendars, you're going externally to pull information from another source. RAG is retrieval augmented generation. And you can think of this as, when you think of RAG, think internal. So we'll have a database with information, and say we want to look up something about the terms and conditions. RAG is just asking a question, looking into that database, and giving us the answer. So an analogy for you would be, you ask me a question, the answer is in the library, which is the database. The books are stored in a certain way in the library. The data is stored a certain way in the database. And I go in there, I find the book, I get the answer, I delivered the answer to you. So at the end of the day, you asked me a question, I went back into the information source, I retrieved the answer and gave it to you. That's all RAG is. For RAG, one of the main phases is data indexing. So basically we go from documents to chunks, embeddings, and into a database. What that means, say we have a document, it could be a policy document, FAQ, a terms and conditions. Say the document is the history of golf, and the PDF is 1,000 pages long. That document gets broken up into smaller chunks. From there, those chunks undergo an embedding model. What does that mean? It's simply turning text into numbers. After we turn the text into numbers, it's stored in a vector database. This is a vector database, and as you can see, it's a multi-dimensional plot, and each vector is placed based on the meaning of the words, and those that are similar are placed next to each other. So we can see we have a group of animals over there, we have a group of fruits over there. So anytime we query or try and look up some information, the vector database will organize the information based on how related they are to each other. The point to remember in this for RAG is that you're using a vector database to store information, and you want to think of it as internal. You're not going externally. You're literally just taking the information that you already have, you're putting it into a vector database, and you can retrieve this information using LLM. So you can ask an LLM questions, it can go into the database, and it can find you an answer. Again, back to the analogy of, you have a question, you're going to the library, you're looking through the system, how it's organized, finding the correct book, and getting the answer. That's what RAG allows us to do, and that's what makes it very easy for LLMs to get the answer, and that's how we can create agents and automations using RAG. An API is basically a waiter, is an easy way to think about it. It allows you to connect information from one source to another source. So for example, if you go to a restaurant and you want the Caesar salad, you don't go tell the chef that you want the Caesar salad. you will have the waiter take your order, which is your information, deliver it to the chef. The chef will take that information, create the Caesar salad, give the Caesar salad to the waiter, and the waiter will bring you back the Caesar salad. So at a high level, it's a waiter. An API is a waiter. So when you think of using N8N, when you want to go externally for information, you're going to use a waiter. So that's an API. We'll connect N8N to, for example, your Gmail or your Google Drive, or as we did the example, OpenAI. It is simply just taking information from N8N, going to Google Drive, your Gmail, or OpenAI, getting the information, and then sending it back to you. The great thing about N8N, it has a lot of API integrations already. So in the OpenAI example and the Gmail example, you saw we were able to just simply connect them using our credentials. So we can access a lot of different apps, a lot of different tools on the internet using the already integrated APIs. The issue may arise if it's not integrated with N8N. So we have a workaround for that too, and we'll go through that right now. In addition to APIs, we have HTTP requests. So you can think of this as just another way to communicate digitally. It's basically going from you to an endpoint or a server. You can send and retrieve information. So for example, a GET we would use for retrieving information, and a POST we would use for sending information. So for example, what is a GET? If we wanted to know what is the top story on a certain website, that is a GET. From us, we're getting information from the server. The GET typically uses URL parameters to transfer information, and for a POST, we are sending data, right? So for example, we want to write and post a blog post. That is sending data from us to the endpoint, the server. And that's typically sent in JSON. So you can think of, just at a high level, HTTP as just a mailing system. For an HTTP request, you basically have 5 steps. So for step 1, you have to identify the method. Is it a GET or a POST? You also have to identify the endpoint. So where is the website? And then we have 3 kind of filtering selections here. We have the query, the header, and the body. So for query, you can think of, like, if you Google something right now, I just Googled Lionel Messi. You see how it says search Q? That's basically the query, just to show you kind of what it looks like. For header, you can think of a header parameter as authorizing yourself. So you send your unique key and you get access to the server. So it's kind of like how we did it with OpenAI, right? We had to put the key into N8N to authorize the connection. And finally, we have the body parameter. This is, we're sending something over to get something back. So say we want to know more about a client named Mike in our CRM, we would be able to input that and then get back information about Mike. We are now going to create a RAG chatbot. So the first thing we want to do is add a trigger. So we'll go in here into Google Drive. From here, we'll click on changes involving a specific folder. The first thing we want to do is get credentialed. So we will add our credentialing here. You want to click up here on Open Docs. For the prereqs, you want to click Create a Google Cloud account. And from here, you can sign up for Google Cloud. We are in Google Cloud now, so we can create a new project. So you'll see something up here. It'll be called New Project or Start a Project. So you'll come in here. We'll start a new project. We will call it a demo, and we'll create it. So you can see it's starting to create. We'll wait for it to finish. So the project is done. We can click Select Project, and now we want to add the Google Drive API. So we'll click API and Services, Enabled APIs and Services. We will search for Google Drive. We'll click on Google Drive, and we'll click Enable. We've connected the Google Drive API to N8N. As you can see, the status enabled. Again, remember from the API lecture, it's just Google Drive can now communicate with N8N. So we want to set up our OAuth consent. So we'll come up here on the left, OAuth consent. We will click Get Started. We will call this a demo. We'll put the email in. Next, we'll just do external. We'll use the same email address. Next, I agree. Next, create. And here we are. So we've set up our auth consent. Next, we will add a test user. So we'll go to audience over here. We want to add a test user. I'll just put my email in right here. As you can see, we added a test user right here. So now we just want to create a client. We'll click on clients, click create a client. We're going to do a web application. We'll call it a demo. And now we want to add our redirect URI. So if we come back here, we can pull this and add it in here. And now when we click create, it'll give us a client ID and a secret. So we can copy both of those and transfer them to N8N. All right, so we copied the client ID and client secret in here. So now we can just sign in with Google. Make sure you use the same user account that you did for the test account. Allow. And there we go. So Google Drive is now connected and we can access some of the folders and files through N8N. So we'll come down here and select Pet Paradise. Say, for example, I run a pet store. We want to watch for file created and we'll do fetch test event. So now we get all this information from the file. So it's a little interesting in table format. You can look at the schema, but if we go into the JSON or move back to the table and we see it's called Pet Paradise Policies. So this is the file we're looking for. So we see the one item here, the Pet Paradise Policies. And again, remember, we're trying to create a situation where every time we create a file in our Google Drive, it gets stored in a database that we can access. So we'll add another node here. We will go to Google Drive and we'll do download a file. Here we can see the information in schema, table, and JSON format, and we can pull a file from the list. We want it to be dynamic. We don't remember, if we select one of these and fixed, it'll always be this file. So what we can do is, I like JSON, if we come and look for the file ID, and here it is, we drop it in, right? JSON.id, we execute the step, and there we go. Now we have our file to download. So we can get out and we can see there is an item here. So the next step will be to add a database. So to add a database, go to pinecone.io and you can sign up here. So once you're set up, we'll go ahead and create the index. Click begin setup. We'll say demo 1. This is the embeddings model. The most cost-effective one is this one right here. We will keep all of the serverless, keep AWS, keep the region, and click create index. The index is created now, so we just want to take an API key from here and connect it to N8N. So we'll come to API keys, we'll create API key, we'll call it demo 1, create the key, you copy it, take it over to N8N, and now we want to add a node here. So we want to add Pinecone, add documents to vector store, and here we are. Create new credential. We will paste in the API key. Pinecone is now connected to N8N, as you can see up here. We checked from our list and we got demo 1, and that is again our Pinecone index that we created. We see the Pinecone namespace. So a namespace is a folder in an index. And if we go back to Pinecone, we can see the namespace here. And we can come back to N8N and we can name it. We'll call it Pet Policies, and we'll add a node for the embedding model. We use OpenAI. Again, here you can connect your API with OpenAI to have it come over to N8N. You can also use the free API credits here. We use the 3 small model, and now we will add a node to this. For the document loader, we can select the default loader. In the data loader, we have the option for type of data. We can see that we have it in a docx format. We can do JSON, but we have it in a binary format, and that just basically takes anything that's not JSON. So it'll take the docx, PDF, etc. And we want to look at text splitting here. We want to have a custom text split. So we'll click out now. And as we can see, we have an option here to add a node. So we'll click in here, and we have 3 options. We will click a recursive option. So we see here the chunk size is at 1,000. We can leave it at the default here. Chunk overlap, we'll leave it at 0. Why we picked recursive versus the other 3 options: recursive keeps more of the semantic meaning and context of the document, so it's the go-to pick for this situation. We come out, and now we can execute the workflow, and here we go. We get the 4 items if we just open this up, and now we can see how the information was chunked. So here are the 4 chunks that were put in the vector database. Here's our workflow here. So again, to summarize, anytime a file is created in Google Drive, we are actually chunking that and embedding that in the vector database that we've created. So now we want to add the AI agent into the flow so that we can chat with the AI agent and pull information from the vector database. So the first thing we want to do is go ahead and add the AI agent. And now we want to add our chat trigger. When a message is received, we will talk to our AI agent. We can now add our chat model. So you have a bunch of different models you can choose from. I'm going to go with OpenAI's model because we have our API connected already. So we'll just go with that. And we can also add the tool. So we can go to Pinecone Vector Store, and we're adding our Pinecone Vector database. So if we look in here, we can see that we have our Pinecone connected, and we'll add a description for the agent. And now if we look at the list, this is what we titled it in Pinecone. So it's the demo 1. We want to add our namespace. It was pet policies. So if we click out of this, we need to add an embeddings model. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing that we did with the ChatGPT model. And now we're ready to run and talk to the agent. I'm going to go ahead and open the chat window, and now we can talk to the agent about the document inside our Google Drive that we chunked, embedded into a vector database, and our chat agent is going into that vector database and finding information that we want. So for example, we run Pet Paradise. Does Pet Paradise offer a rewards program? Yes, we do. We offer Paw Points rewards program. You can earn 1 point for every $1 spent. So this just goes to show you how powerful these tools can be. So we're literally taking information that's created in Google Drive. We are chunking it, running it through an embedding model, storing it in a vector database. And now we have an AI agent who can reach into that vector database, retrieve information for us, and we're able to just talk to this agent without ever having to actually go look for the information or find the information. I hope this just gives you a small idea of how much efficiency you can gain in work, whether you're consulting businesses or at your own job, just by implementing some of these tools. They really give you so much time back, and you've officially built an agent. So congratulations, and I'll see you in the next one.